What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out Fred Dibnah doing something a little bit different than we've ever seen him do before. And that is we're going to see him do something outside of him being a steeplejack.
Yeah.
Up until this point, we've seen videos of him climbing chimneys, taking down chimneys and things like that.
The scaffolding.
The scaffolding. I think,
which are all amazing, by the way.
Absolutely incredible. And I think you've seen like 2 or maybe 3 videos, and I've probably seen 5 or 6 Fred Dibnah videos. But this will be the first video we've seen him outside of the scaffolding or the chimneys, anything to do with steeplejacking. A lot of people have requested that we check out something like this. So today we're going to be checking out Fred Dibnah visiting Eastnor Castle. And I believe he's going to be talking about probably the architecture and how it's built and things like that. The description said something about he was also going to show something about how steam-powered engines helped build this place in a quicker manner or something like that. I don't really know exactly what we're going to see here. All I know is that we're going to see Fred Dibnah in a different light, which is something I've been wanting to do for quite some time now. Self-created master.
I first became interested in buildings when I was about 15 years old. And of course, I lived here in this small terraced house, and my mother and father wanted me to be an undertaker. Now, I didn't fancy that, you know, so I got on my bicycle and I pedalled off to the Youth Employment Bureau, where they fixed me up with a job as a joiner.
They want to be an undertaker.
He's not a bricklayer, but he built that. Oh, it was awful. I didn't want him to do that. The evening news came around and took the photograph when I was at work.
Was that his mom?
I think so.
I built this chimney when I were about 17 years old.
He built that at 17?
Like next door, you know, with 5 pots on, which 4 of them were disused and smoke only went up one. So I thought, well, we'll take all these 4 down and build a nice chimney stack, you see. So I didn't really design it, I just built it. It just ended up that shape. Everybody said I was crazy, you know.
Oh my gosh, I'm just thinking from a mother's perspective, okay? My 17-year-old son, oh no.
Is on top of the roof building a chimney. That is his house, right? That's where he was talking about, that's where he was.
Oh, was it their house?
I don't know. He was at his house and then all of a sudden he's on top of the roof saying he built this at 17, so I'm assuming maybe.
Oh, I thought he started his job at 17 where he was
I don't know.
going into the steeplejack.
That could be the case.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not sure if this is his house or not, but either way, it doesn't matter. At 17, he built a chimney and
just on the fly.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly this was his calling.
This was his passion and his calling, absolutely.
But it never cracked, and it's got a lovely draft on it, you know. Suck your house slippers off when it's going at bottom.
What's he doing? Is he cleaning
it? When he was about 17, you'd think he'd work in office, not doing what he does now.
My work as a joiner got me into some of the splendid mansions that the cotton mill owners and bleach works owners have built. This actual house was built by a bleach works owner. The thing is, I couldn't help but notice, having come from an house that hadn't got any skirting boards, you know, the quality of the woodwork. All the beautiful skirting boards and marble fireplaces and architraves and panel doors, and best of all, the fancy plastered ceilings. Made me wonder, you know, how ever did they do it? Of course, it's a pub now, so really, everybody can enjoy it.
That's cool.
Wow. It's a beautiful pub.
The Victorians went to great lengths to make things pleasing to the eye, whether it were a great civil engineering project or something as small as a window catch.
We need to go back to that.
Detail, you know, much more ornate than what we do these days.
Yes, I've quickly learned on this journey that I think the Victorian era architecture is some of my favorite. Beautiful. It is beautiful, and he's absolutely correct. When you look at the detail,
every little last piece was just so beautifully designed.
But then again, it wasn't just the Victorian era. You go back and you look at, like, for example, Westminster Abbey. You haven't really looked into Westminster Abbey really yet, but yeah, all the old abbeys and whatnot. You look at the intricate design where they did on everything, and it's just like, not only do you wonder how they did it, but you're just amazed at the fact that they put so much effort into making things look beautiful. And now you compare with today's buildings, and I'm like, it's just like today's buildings are just so
beauty is
nothing.
so important, and I think we've lost that tenet of life.
Yeah, and
everything.
For some reason, they used to know beauty was important, but it seems like we no longer recognize that for some reason as a society.
We don't place importance on it.
No, I mean, look at like, I don't know, just look at all your regular buildings, office buildings and whatnot that they build today. At least in America, I mean, most of them are pretty just plain, square.
Very drab.
Yeah.
On their buildings, they did all this ornamentation on a really grand scale, something I was able to see at close quarters. About 30 years ago, when I was in my prime, I got the job of repairing the lantern on top of this town hall behind me.
Wow.
Then I thought, I've reached the pinnacle of my career.
Oh gosh, it just makes me so nauseous.
Oh no, yeah. Sitting there on a swing.
Oh.
Round the top, in the balustrade of the lantern, there are 16 stone pillars. And I made a machine and actually turned these stone pillars. And then, of course, I taught myself into gilding the ball on top and pointing the whole lantern right down to the top of the
Wow,
lane.
he did that? Wow.
When it was built in the 19th century, it was a time
that's incredible.
they had a great respect for the past, and they wanted their buildings to reflect the values of an earlier age. They built a new Houses of Parliament that matched the medieval splendours of Westminster Abbey right next door. And they made country houses look like castles. Eastnor Castle in Herefordshire isn't really a proper castle. What it is a big, comfortable country house designed to look like one. It was built for the first Earl Somers in the first part of the 19th century. And he wanted everybody to know how rich and well established his family were. So he commissioned the architect Robert Smirk to design a place that would look as big and impressive as one of the castles that Edward I had built nearly 1,000 years earlier. Eastnor took 6 years to build and cost over £85,000.
Wonder how much that would be today.
Yeah, I don't know.
And at a time when Britain's aristocracy felt threatened by the recent French Revolution, it sent a very clear message to the ordinary people round about. It said, remember who your masters are.
Wow, look at that ceiling.
Out such a lot about Smirk's building techniques and the way he went about doing things, because of all the records he left behind here at Eastnor Castle. And this is James, the current owner, who's got all these wonderful plans and things, and he's going to tell me a few tales and read me a few letters about it.
Good. Yeah, well, we're very lucky that we've kept these. There is a very good record, both of drawings and of letters describing the process. And I think one of the first things to notice is there was a huge amount of stone required for the house. They were very keen to quarry it locally. So in the original estimate, which is here, which was for a total bill of £82,000 approximately.
It's incredible, isn't it?
They said, we don't expect to take the stone more than 5 miles. But in fact, when they looked locally, the stone was mostly granite round here, but actually they had to look elsewhere. There's a letter here saying, I'm sorry to say we must abandon all hope of procuring building stone from the ground westward of the house.
Wow. Can you imagine? I think that would be the most fun part of owning a house like that.
The history. That
you're going to find, who knows, you probably have things that are hidden in the walls and stuff that you could potentially find.
On the property.
Paperwork like that, stuff in the attic. And
side note, did you see how amazing that handwriting was?
Back then, they knew how to do it.
Beautiful.
Fun fact, we're teaching Sophia cursive. They do not teach that in school nowadays very often, do they?
It depends on the school, but it's
most schools
becoming
don't.
more rare.
Yeah.
At least here in the U.S.
Because they don't use it. But we want to make sure she knows how to do cursive. I think that's pretty important. So
I love cursive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they went to look a bit further. And that's how he came down to the Forest of Dean, and the house is built of Forest of Dean sandstone.
Very obvious.
Sandstone.
Mr. Smuck kept very tight controls over the finances and his accounting system.
The one we've already seen is this costing for the whole building of £82,000. And the interesting thing is at the end it had cost £85,000, so it was only £3,000 over budget.
Pretty close.
This
Yeah.
account is interesting because it shows how he was drawing on craftsmen from around the country. And there's some, obviously some
London.
very busy ones in London from Smith Street.
One from Carlisle.
And then finally at the bottom of the list he's put his own bill in for £1,641, 11 shillings and twopence.
It's quite obvious he used a lot of, new techniques for that period.
I think Smirke was prepared to use modern methods, or what were becoming modern methods then, and introduced cast iron into the house. I think there was a shortage of wood at the time that the castle was being built, so although a lot was cut here, they still needed more wood or support
than
material.
what they could find.
Smirke used big cast iron beams to support the structure and to enable us to have these large roof spans, which otherwise could only be managed with arches.
Yeah, yeah.
The reason for the great cast iron beam at Eastnor Castle is to actually hold up the front wall of the tower, you see, because this wall on this tower is situated roughly halfway along the Great Hall. So instead of building a great big arch like the Normans would have done, they've cast these two iron beams. They're held together by big bolts with big spur-headed nuts.
Wow.
The whole roof's made of iron. There's no wood at all. The only wood involved is the actual ceiling, of the Great Hall. When you get up there inside the roof space, you find that they're all units. They're all like pieces, say, 8 feet long with dovetails on the end and mortar saws and...
Okay, guys, I want to look at this.
How good that's still holding up. Like,
I know.
It looks new still.
That's incredible. The amount of weight that would have been to lift up there. Like, isn't that amazing to think about lifting that's heavy beams back then?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they did it. It's just phenomenal. It's just amazing to see.
It would make me. It seems way sturdier.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to weather.
What about fire?
Fire. But it makes me a little nervous having all that weight above you.
I mean, it's all tied together or bolted together, so I mean, it's fine, but...
pinholes and holes for keys to be knocked through. So the rate of assembly will be very quick. And of course, there's no, you never get dry rot in it and woodworm and all that. It'll be there in 1,000 years if you keep going up and giving it a coat of tar every now and again.
That's true.
Once Eastnor Castle had been built, they proceeded with the interior work and it was all pretty lavish. This is the Gothic drawing room, which was redecorated in 1849.
Look at the...
And for me, this is the height of Victorian Splendour.
That is incredible.
I love the...
And it's a
Yeah.
I
very
don't even know what
fine
those are.
example
That's what I was
of
looking
how
at.
good they were at decorating places back in them days. The man responsible for the room was the architect and designer Augustus Welby Pugin.
Man.
Pugin had a great passion for Gothic architecture of the medieval cathedrals, all those pointed archways and ornate stonework.
I love that.
To him, Gothic architecture wasn't just a passing fancy. He really believed in it with his heart and soul. This is St Giles at Cheadle in Staffordshire, which was designed by Pugin when he was at the height of his career.
I love every single cathedral I've seen. They're incredible.
He got together a team of craftsmen to provide the decorative detail for buildings
The detail.
like this. And I went to
Every
see
corner
how
is
some of
different.
it was done.
There's so much stained glass and...
Pugin's beautiful tile designs were actually manufactured by Herbert Minton. And Chris here is going to let me have a do at making one in exactly the same way as they did.
Hi, Fred.
All right.
Okay, this is one of the earliest forms of decorative tile manufacture. This is very much a Pugin design.
What's
So
the
we start off
material?
with the buff colour, the light colours,
some kind
and
of
they're
stone.
pressed into the plaster mould, and then the background
Is it sandstone?
clay is added.
I don't know.
You want to have a go, Fred?
Yeah, go on.
There's the
What are
clay.
they
Just
putting
use
in
your
there?
thumb and push
Yeah,
it into all
It
the
looks
corners.
like clay.
hang
Looks
on.
like it.
I've not got enough on.
That's it. You're going to take your cake of clay. And just pat that on the surface and slap it down right in the middle there.
Yeah. Boom.
That's it. And then you need to beat the clay in, beat a row up the middle. That's consolidated the clay, and the next job is to wire the surplus off. So if you take your wire, stretch it out taut.
Cut it off.
It's quite hard stuff.
It is.
So we can get rid of that. You can, yeah. That's it, that's enough. Pull it out. And that's the back stamp.
Oh, okay. That says who made it.
There it is.
That's a
Once
very
it's dry, we
involved
can
process.
release it round the edges. Then we take a liquid version of the clay and pour it into the recesses that are left in the pattern. The final stage in the process is to scrape away the surplus on top of the tile. This is very time-consuming.
Looks like it.
So as Minton became more successful, they had to find ways of speeding up production, and they started to use tile presses, beginning to semi-automate the process. Even so, many of the printed designs still needed to be finished and glazed by hand.
It's beautiful.
So you can see Pugin came up with a strange mixture of the old and the new, and he created some magnificent designs and said he never stopped working, you know. He did over 2,000 designs for the fixtures and fittings in the Houses of Parliament alone. This was the job that made Pugin's name.
I recognize that name.
Got it as a result of the old Palace of Westminster burning down in 1834. The commission to rebuild it had actually gone to someone else. Sir Charles Barry was the main man for the classical style of architecture that was popular at this time, buildings like Bolton Town Hall. But the contract for the job stated that it had to be in the Gothic style, which wasn't really his thing, so he turned to Pugin for help.
Look at that. It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is.
It really is. It's so incredible.
What began in 1837, and the Pugin-Barry partnership was dead right for the job. While Pugin looked after the detail of the design, Barry was free to tackle the even more difficult problems of how actually to build the palace in the first place.
As you can see, it's a building site today, but in 1836 it would have looked pretty similar, but for one or two things. The fact that there would have been quite substantial scaffolding, I should imagine, not even fir poles, you know, big 8-inch square blocks of timber, and really grand platforms for working on.
It would have been a hive of activity using all the most up-to-date machinery of the day.
Even though it looks medieval, there's a lot of quite modern materials been used in its construction. You know, I mean, in medieval times, you know, everything were wrought iron, you know, it'd have to be banged with a big hammer in a fire. Here, there's the great use of cast iron everywhere. Like, all the roof is cast iron plates.
I didn't realize
There's a lot of
iron,
cast iron girders and beams inside. So this building, although it mimics the cathedrals of the Middle Ages, the site, you know, when it was being built, would look very similar to them cathedrals, apart from the modern age of the 1830s, like the steam engine. In order to get the foundations for the Houses of Parliament so close to the shoreline of the river, you come up with an ingenious solution of, like, building a cofferdam. That means driving a great row of wooden piles into the bed of the river and making them safe, and then caulking up the seams, same as they did the decks of ships.
Wow.
And then, of course, they would pump the water out of the banking side where they were going to do the foundations for the wall of the Houses of Parliament.
That's crazy.
I always wondered how they would do stuff like that.
They, of course, would have had steam-driven pumps where I'm siphoning it out, or most of it. That's it. Now,
that's brilliant.
The builders now could proceed to put in the foundations. They put a slab of concrete in 10 feet thick in the bottom and then started with the masonry.
Wow. And once the palace was built, it was left up to Pugin to decorate its interior.
Can you imagine?
Man.
Like, just the amount of thought and time and, like, just...
effort.
Yes. Like, that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I don't know how big that building is, but it's massive.
Yeah.
Extremely massive. It's incredible. Like, so much detail.
This
Wonder
is
how long
the
it took.
interior of the House of Lords. And here, Pugin used all his skills to make a grand statement. He
made a
busied
statement,
himself
right.
with every detail of the decoration, from the detailed carvings to every piece of its 1,100 items of furniture. He even designed the wallpaper. The original designs for Pugin's interiors were done by Crace Brothers. And here at Cole & Companies, they've got the actual original Pugin blocks.
Wow.
That is amazing.
These blocks were used to print Pugin's patterns onto sheets of wallpaper. You have to line it up with a mark and press down hard with a foot pedal. There can be as many as 7 different printing processes to go through. Another method Pugin and Crace used was to print the pattern onto the wallpaper with glue and then stick flocking to it to give it a textured look. And they still beat it on today in the same way as it was
Such
done
an
in Pugin's
involved
time.
process.
Pugin died in 1852, but work on his designs for the Houses of Parliament went on. In
didn't get to see it
1858,
finished.
the Westminster Clock Tower was completed, the one we call Big Ben, after the bell inside it. It stands 316 feet high and 40 feet square, and is constructed of Anston stone from Yorkshire with a brick core. By 1860, all the work had been completed at a total cost of just under £2,200,000.
I bet that was a lot back
Big
then.
Ben has 334 steps leading up to the belfry, and a further 59 to the lantern above.
We know Fred's fit. Even when he was an older age, I'm sure he was fit.
They installed a steam hoist to raise up all the machinery for the clock and the bells, and I suppose all the cast iron work that forms the lantern on top of Big Ben. When the job was finished, they shifted it all out the bottom. In my opinion, they should have left the steam winch, because this staircase is the only way up here. And believe me, it takes it out of you. These are the original clockworks that have been here since 1859. It used to take 6 men 8 hours to wind up the clock with its handles.
8
at each
hours.
end. But of course nowadays it's electrified, which has took a lot of our graft out of it. But there's still certain bits of it that are hydraulic, like this one here in the middle. This has got to be done.
That's what I was wondering.
Every 2 days, you know.
Every 2 days?
Fairly hard work, believe me.
8 hours every 2 days.
So they would have to go in there and work for 8 hours winding a clock every 2 days?
That sounded like this.
That's
The design
wild.
of the mechanism followed strict requirements from the Astronomer Royal, who wanted to ensure that no matter how hard the wind blows on the hands outside, the rate of timekeeping remained constant. They couldn't control the temperature though. Over the seasons, the pendulum expands and contracts with the heat. So these old pennies are used to adjust the weight. Each penny makes the clock go faster by 2/5 of a second.
That's crazy.
In 1976, they had an unbelievable disaster here in this tower. You know, the mechanism on the chiming side of the clock, the brake failed and the weights began to descend inside the tower, and reputedly reached the speed of 200 miles an hour, which would make these wheels go round a hell of a speed.
Oh my goodness.
The centrifugal force got so great, the frame blew to pieces and the wheels danced about all over the place. It only took 13 hours to get the actual clock mechanism going again, but it took a further 9 months to get the chime inside right.
Oh my word.
Wow.
Must be.
I love that sound.
I do too. Must be the term where the term like clockwork came from. Like how involved everything is, and it has to work just so.
It is incredible how involved that was. Like, to look at that, like, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful song.
Look at all the moving parts to this.
And if anything's off just a tiny bit.
Yeah. Oh my
gosh, you have to
goodness.
stand up beside that? That's gotta be loud.
That has to be so loud. Oh my goodness. I love that sound. Ooh, I love that bell.
I bet it would feel good though, like the vibration.
I don't know what they're going to say next week when I go to the hearing aid clinic. There are 4 quarter bells which chime the introduction to the great hour bell, Big Ben. But it isn't the original Big Ben. The original one was cast at Stockton-on-Tees, but it shattered under the weight of the hammer when it was first hit. So they had to melt it down at Whitechapel and recast a new one. 2 months after this particular bell was installed, 2 more cracks appeared. And of course here you could see where they chiselled in to find the true depth of the crack. There were no radiography then, you know. Then, to solve the problem, they moved the wall bell round a quarter of a turn and reduced the hammer by almost half its weight. The clock tower is the crowning glory of the Palace of Westminster, and it's one of the greatest and most recognisable national monuments we've seen in the building of Britain. While we've been going about on our travels, we've met a lot of craftsmen of all sorts, you know, wallpaperers, plasterers, lead men, everything, you know, stonemasons. And it's so nice to know that there are still craftsmen and crafts-ladies about who can still do this type of work.
A man who says he feels no fear is either a fool or a liar. That is 100% correct. I can honestly say, if I had to do his steeplejacking job, I would definitely feel fear. Hanging off the side of chimneys is definitely not my thing.
I mean, I don't think anyone could do that and not feel that way.
But what he did was incredible.
Yeah.
You know, being a steeplejack is definitely something that is not for the faint of heart. No. It's definitely a very small segment of the population that could do that job and do it well. It's incredible. But I thought this was incredible as well. It was really interesting to see him with in this light.
Yeah.
You know, we got to get a good glimpse of his personality here. And
true.
I like Fred.
I do too. He was like everyone's grandpa.
Yeah, he was.
I could see why he was such an icon.
We got to see quite a few different places,
like up close
in the UK, up close and personal. You know, I had never seen Big Ben up close. It's actually one of the things that I've been wanting us to explore, and we still probably will, because we obviously didn't learn everything about it, but we did finally get to see an up close view of the bell, which was incredible.
So Big Ben is the bell itself.
Big Ben is the bell, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I could be wrong on this. I haven't heard it well, but I believe the tower is like the Elizabeth Tower or something along that lines. I can't remember. I'm probably wrong on that, but I think that's what it is. But guys, I love this. This was our first time seeing Fred outside of him being a steeplejack, and you know, definitely want to explore more of stuff like this. So this looks like a program maybe Fred did numerous episodes of. I'm not 100% sure, but if that's the case, let us know in the comments. Also, let us know what you think we should check out next from Fred, or maybe some other individuals that are similar in nature. I definitely love the building stuff. Yeah. You know, I don't know where that comes from. Growing up, I was never really into architecture. I've always loved beautifying things, but for me, it was through landscaping. And I always love like just seeing just beautiful places and whatnot. But as of the last couple of years, especially on this journey, I've definitely, I guess, seeing the great cathedrals like Westminster Abbey and whatnot. Yeah, it's just opened my eyes to beauty that I don't think I really recognized before. And now I can't shut that part away. I love it. I love seeing new architecture, and I love seeing how things are built. I even love like exploring like bridges and things like that now. I like learning just about the engineering and just
architectural wonders.
Yes, mega feats, if you will, things like that. So I'm always up for learning about new things like that. So if you have recommendations for that type of stuff as well, please leave them in the comments. But I think that's it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for stopping stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow us on our journey to discover anything and everything about the UK and Ireland. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Bye.